but I'm just waiting. So I'm so glad to be here. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little discombobulated today. And I think we should all really be honest about how we feel. When people ask us all the time, we're so inclined to just say, I'm good, thanks, because we want to be polite. We think people don't really care. They don't need to know what's going on. And, you don't have to go into your life story, but I think it's okay to say, you know what? I've had better days, not feeling that great today. Who can't relate, right? I mean, everybody has those days. Everybody's under the weather or at some point. Everybody has a really difficult day when things just don't go as they had hoped. And that's okay. That's how we can connect on a more human level, by being honest. But my question I'd really like to talk about today is, of course we want to be open and honest, but when is the right time to be honest, and when is the right time to hold your tongue, right? And not open your mouth? Because I think we can all agree that there are also times that we should really just zip it, that we should not open our mouths. There's just not time to go into things, right? And I think a lot of us are brought up believing that it's okay to tell a little white lie in certain circumstances. But I think sometimes it's just better not to say anything at all. Because sometimes if you look at a situation, there's oftentimes spiritually that if you have a problem with somebody or something, or there's an issue that you want to approach or communicate to somebody, I think you really need to look at the situation as, well, is this an issue with them or is this an issue with me? And I bring this up because there was a situation this past week with somebody that I really love and care about. And I always want to be open and honest with them in my relationship with them. I never want to hold anything back, but at the same time, I admit I have faults just like we all do. And sometimes I tend to nitpick a little too much at this person. Sometimes I tend to get a little too emotional with this person and open up a little too much when maybe I shouldn't. And it's good to always express your feelings and your emotions. And if something really is bothering you that they are doing that they can fix, or they may not be aware of, or something that they do routinely that triggers you, it's okay to open up and explain that to them so that you can have a good open communication. But sometimes you also need to stop and look at the situation and say, now, is this them? Is this their problem? Are they the cause of the problem? Or is this me? Because in every situation that bothers us, more often than not, if you're bothered by something, it's because of something that's been triggered from your past, from earlier in your life when you were a child or a young adult. And because of this, we can oftentimes get aggravated and triggered by people and things that they do, and we think it's them. We think it's them aggravating us. We think they're being inconsiderate or insensitive with the things they're saying or doing. But if you were outside as a third party looking in at that situation and watching it with unattached emotions, you would probably see that it's not them, and that you're the one that's being really sensitive. And this particular person did something, and I snapped at them. I came right out and told them, you know what, when you do that, it really gets on my nerves. It really aggravates me. I wish you'd stop and think before you do that. And after I stopped to think about it for a little bit, I realized, wait a minute, I've said this to them before. Why does this continue to trigger me? And when you really stop and ask yourself those deeper questions, a lot of times you'll realize someone in your past did that to you under a different set of circumstances with different intentions at that time that really hurt you. And if you think about it and you ask yourself, well, what is this new person, this recent person that we're dealing with? What's their intentions? Are they really doing this to aggravate me, or are they really being insensitive? And oftentimes the answer is no, it's not. They're not at all. So once I had a chance to really look at that and analyze that, I realized it was myself that was being the problem. And I really should have just kept my mouth shut at that point, because I was bringing up and causing an issue now on that person after they had a really difficult day at work, after they had already had some issues that were, not the greatest. It wasn't the greatest day already for them. And then they come and spend time with me, and I kind of took my own problems out on them. And it really wasn't fair. And I think that more often than not, this can be the case in a lot of our relationship issues. But it's not always the case. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't speak up, because you should. If there's something that really bothers you that somebody routinely does, or you can tell that they're doing something out of ill intent or being very selfish, then you should stand your ground, stand in your truth, and ask them if you can talk about it like an adult, maturely, and to sit down and discuss and explain to them, this bothers me when you do this, and I don't know why, but can we work on finding a way to avoid this happening in the future so that it doesn't upset me or trigger me? And you might be surprised, because that person might realize something in themselves at that moment if you're compassionate about the way that you say it, if you're sensitive and say it with love. They may just surprise you and apologize and accept full responsibility and change it and prevent it from happening again. But I just really want to encourage you to always stop before you jump at somebody or a situation, and ask yourself. It may only take a half a second to ask yourself, is this something that triggers me a lot? Is this something that I tend to get upset over with multiple people? Is this something that's really worth the fight over? And you should also choose your battles wisely, because if we all voiced our opinion nonstop and expressed every little thing that annoyed us, this wouldn't be a very loving world, would it? I mean, we could all really get on each other's nerves. So we really need to learn how to not bottle it up, not keep it all inside, but, those little things that aren't worth the big discussion, aren't worth ruining somebody else's day over, you don't need to bottle that up and not work through it. That's something that those things are the little ones that you can work through on your own, in private, behind closed doors, through meditation, through exercise, through writing, singing, music, being out in nature, different outlets that help cleanse you, help you go deeper and look at your inner self and why these things aggravate you or bother you. So I just really realized this week, I've realized it before, but it was just really reiterated to me this week by Spirit that I needed to really, yes, always be open and honest, and it's okay to be open and honest, but look at the things that you're talking about and see how they're going to affect others around you, and ask yourself, is this a problem with them, or is this really a problem with inside of me? Because too often most of us tend to lash out at the other person or bring something up before we take the time to realize that a lot of times it's us. They're not the problem, but we are. But we need to be humble enough to admit that, so that we can have better relationships and we can help make the rest of the world's relationships and days much better. If we all look at things like this, things will get a lot easier with your relationships. So that's something I'm still working on, far from perfect with, but felt the need to pass that along to you, because I think we can all use that advice. And they reminded me this week that that's something I definitely need to continue to work on, and I will. So because I'm a little bit under the weather, I would like to take a couple of callers, but I am going to definitely use the cards, just because when I'm not 100%, it helps me by using the cards. It helps inspire me more and bring the message through more clearly, because I can see the message directly in the book, and then that helps trigger the things that my intuition brings through from Spirit. So I'm still going to give you an intuitive reading, but using the cards will help aid that this week, rather than just doing it with just my intuition and abilities.